What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, a channel 100% dedicated to the Arsenal, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. And it's Monday Night Football. We've seen all the other games this weekend, and all that is left is for Arsenal to take the 3 points from Selhurst Park, very much as we did at the start of last season, and clock up 6 points from 2 games to keep the pressure on Manchester City as they go into a very winnable run of games. Our run of games, on the other hand, not quite as easy to negotiate. So a lot of pressure on us to take the 3 points here. And when the fixtures came out, I did look at this and think, Forest, Palace, 6 points. Just like all other games, the closer we get to the game, the more worried I am. But this is a winnable game, isn't it? We beat them home and away last season. They were in a relegation battle till March, and then they had to go and get Roy Hodgson out of retirement to save their season. And he did more than that. He got them to a finish of 11th, but it's still 11th. They've not brought in any new players, although they have managed to hold on to Mikel Arteta, which is a great piece of news for Crystal Palace fans, I'm sure. And a surprising one, because Chelsea are getting everyone they want apart from that. But they've also lost their arguably greatest ever player in Wilfried Zaha. So surely we must be strong favourites. We have, after all, strengthened our side. And if you're going to win Premier League titles, this is a sort of game you do have to win. So I'm going to take a look at how I think the teams are going to line up, the tactics, and then I'm going to offer a prediction based on as many factors as I can calculate. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much for choosing to be here. I know you could have been anywhere on YouTube watching prank videos, people falling over, or kittens, or whatever your bag is when you're not very sensibly watching this channel. So thank you. I'm going to try and make sure it's worth your while. And if you enjoy it, don't forget to click like. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. So, cracking on. I know that we can point to the opening game of last season and see a 2-0 win, and that we absolutely demolished them in that one game just after they'd sacked Patrick Vieira while they still had a caretaker manager before the magical Roy Hodgson appeared. But it's really misleading to just look at the scoreline in this case. That opening game of last season, and cast your mind back, because no one was talking about title challenges or winning the Premier League back then. We were really just going to repair the season before's failure to clinch a top 4 space. And we'd buoyed by some really exciting signings. Gabby Jesus, who played really well in this game without the goal-scoring threat, which is kind of what we've come to expect and love about Gabby Jesus. And we also had Zinchenko, and it was our first glimpse at what became a defining part of last season, the inverted fullback. It wasn't the kind of victory the 2-0 suggests, though. We created very little and had less possession. They created more chances, looked the busier side, and at times looked like they were going to beat us. Our goal came from a lovely header from Zinchenko into the mix that was headed in by Martinelli. And the second goal, later in the game, when Palace were visibly more tired, came from a Bukayo Saka break where he sort of crosses or shoots, but it goes in off Mark Guehi for a 2-0. By the time they come to the Emirates, they are managerless and they are on the back of a really bad run of form, staring down the barrel of relegation. We totally annihilated them that day. I see Palace lining up tomorrow in a 4-2-3-1, which is pretty much what they played all of last season. And Roy Hodgson, this hasn't been a tactical revolution from him. He's come in and he's gotten results out of players by improving morale and by improving how confident they feel about themselves, and possibly giving them a little bit of a... And if the rumours are true, Patrick Vieira by the end had an unhappy group of players. Roy Hodgson seems to have made them happy. And they're certainly performing, although it's worth not getting too carried away. He did win his first 3 games, but like I said earlier, there was this run of games coming up for them. They have been solid since. There is this good spirit. The lineup tomorrow, I imagine, therefore, will be Johnson in goal, Ward at right back, Mitchell at left back, and a centre-back pairing of Anderson and Guehi in that back 4. In the 2 defensive midfield positions, I would expect to see Lerma and Decore. And then wide on the left, instead of Wilfried Zaha, who, come on, any team would miss, surely, will be Schlupp. On the right of that, I expect to see Ayew. And then in the middle, as the sort of 10 position that they kind of play, Eze for his creativity. And ahead of that, Eduard, who I think is a really cracking striker, and I'm surprised that with all of the teams out there that need one, Manchester United, for example, that they aren't looking this way. This could be a really good season for him. Hopefully he doesn't start tomorrow. But that's the lineup. And the key thing here for me is, look, they are missing Elise. But I think the weakest part of their team tomorrow will be the two fullbacks. And maybe not in of themselves. I think Ward's playing really well. But Tyrick Mitchell, look, it's not a job anyone wants right now, is it? Up against Martinelli and Saka, these have to be the two best wingers in the world. How many teams boast wingers of this quality? Two in the top 5 globally. So how do you contend with that in a 4-2-3-1? You're going to have to pull your centre back over and hope that your defensive midfield can cover there. But if we're tying them up on both wings, this is the exact game where I think a Declan Rice could rampage through the middle. So without further ado, let's get how I think we're going to line up. And that is, first of all, and this, when I used to do the match previews last season, it wasn't even something you discussed. Ramsdale in at number 1. He starts for me. I think he starts for Arteta. I think what we're trying to do here is put pressure on players so that if they don't perform, that they get subbed out for a player who can come in and maybe take that position permanently. But you have to lose a position. If you took the jersey off of him just because you've signed a new player that you think you might like more, then you're sending him a message. I think players can deal with being in and out of squad. It's hard to keep 25 players happy all the time. Arteta talked about it when he was asked if Tierney minded being dropped for the game against Forest. He said, I hope so. We want players to want to be in the first 11, but who have earned it. Now, David Raya hasn't earned it yet, and Ramsdale definitely hasn't lost it yet. So the just thing to do here is to leave Ramsdale in. All the news coming out of Arsenal this week have been just how well Ramsdale's responded to an incoming challenging goalkeeper. Ramsdale starts for me tomorrow. Now, right back is another position that last season he just didn't talk about. This season, and we started with Thomas Partey at right back. Although, look, he didn't play as right back. We only really had 2 defending players for large portions of the game against Nottingham Forest, and that's because for a large part of it, they posed very little threat. True, we conceded a goal down our right side, but there was a pre-season sloppiness about it, which you don't want to see in a game. But we have had 9 days in training. Hopefully they've put some of that right. Thomas Partey, for me, does not start a right back tomorrow because we're more likely to need more defensive cover. We may not have as much possession, and we're unlikely to be camped out in Crystal Palace's half. So Ben White is the obvious right back for me. He comes in, he can form a back 3 with the 2 centre-backs. And then, of course, there is the excellent partnership he's building with Bukayo Saka down that right where he can overlap. Really does offer you options. At left back, a lot of this is now conjectural. I'm thinking, what would I do rather than what would Arteta do? Because I don't know what Arteta would do. And I hope he doesn't become more of a tinkerer this season. I do like stability. I think the pendulum may be swinging from far too rigid to not quite sure who your best 11 is. But if Zinchenko is fit, and he did play the behind closed doors friendly against Luton where he apparently got quite a few minutes, he's obviously not going to be match fit, but he isn't going to become match fit unless he plays. So I think if he's fit enough to play in that pre-season, that was apparently the point of it, well, then he should play. And for me, Zinchenko comes in at left back. Now, if he's not fully fit or match fit, then I think the next best option, as I see it, is Jakob Kivior. I think he would do a good job against Palace tomorrow. And it might be the kind of game where you get to see him a bit more in that position. He's looked good there, though. So Zinchenko, for me, is the first pick. At the moment, I wouldn't be picking Tierney either. It's too up in the air as to whether he's staying or going. And, it is changing the formation if you bring him in a way that playing Zinchenko clearly isn't and Kivior wouldn't be. I'd have one defensive midfielder, and that would be Thomas Partey, who I kind of thought we would lose this summer. I was resigned to it. I wasn't unhappy about it. I would have kept Xhaka over Partey, but something about that I want to say, which is that my criticism of Thomas Partey have been largely around the fact that he goes missing in the big games. Well, tomorrow is not a big game. What you do get from Thomas Partey when he is playing really well is a fluidity. He acts as a perfect fulcrum from the back to the creative positions. And I think he looks really good, and I would like to see him play against Palace tomorrow. In the 8 position, although perhaps not quite the recognised 8 position we had last season, I played Declan Rice. I think that he's shown glimpses of attacking flair that wasn't really able to demonstrate at West Ham. And I'm really keen to see more of that. And so I would put him in ahead of Havertz, ahead of Emil Smith-Rowe. But it is great to have that calibre of player on the bench. And the other midfield position, Martin Odegaard, first name on a team sheet for me. The man is... We are blessed to have Martin Odegaard. His current value must be 3 times what we paid for him. Captain... I don't know what more you could ask for from him. He's creative, hardworking, puts in a shift every single time, can play a ball like very few others, can see a pass that very few others can see, and weighs in with goals as well. Martin Odegaard, our captain. On the left and right wings, no prizes for guessing. It's Martinelli and Saka. Who in the world has a better wing partnership than us? These two, both in the top 5 wingers in the world. It is fantastic to be able to watch players of that calibre week in, week out. And I can't see any reason to drop either of them. A last-minute niggle or injury, perhaps. But Saka looks raring to go, and Martinelli is hungrier than ever. So, up front, the only other possible area of you could doubt, really, and that is, who are you going to play up? Who plays instead of Gabby Jesus? Because he definitely would be the kind of player that would help us unlock a resolute defence. Now, I know that this is a difficult decision for me, so it probably is for Arteta as well. But as he's been telling us in his press conferences, the reason he picked him against Forest is because he worked so hard in training. When he gave him his shot against Forest, there's no arguing he played well. We are seeing a confident Eddie Nketiah. And when Eddie's confident and believes he's been given a chance, he is capable, and I think he's better than I've realised. So I'm of a mind to start with Eddie Nketiah. The other really cogent reason for that is he's not great off the bench anyway. So if you don't start him, you might as well not bring him. And we're not flush up front. So the other choice, of course, is Trossard. And it's really difficult because if Eddie deserves a chance because he worked hard in training, surely Trossard deserves a chance because he's been our best player pre-season. You know, he has come off the bench to great effect, though. So the logical thing for me to do is start with Eddie. If it doesn't work out, you've always got Trossard you can throw on. I know that's not fair necessarily on Leandro Trossard, and I do think it's getting to the point now where you can't really leave him out. So maybe he could come on for Declan Rice if that's not working, or maybe come on for Martinelli if that's not working. Again, he could start with him. I don't think I would be upset if I saw us start with him, but then you're dropping Eddie at a time when you've been saying he's deserved the chance. And do you want an unhappy player in the team? Look, I think it comes back to what we were saying a little while ago. Having an unhappy player because you can't get in a team like Tierney, that's one thing. They have to believe they have a chance to get back in the team. So that's my 11. I imagine that the key thing for us to do tomorrow is to keep the width, because it's going to be really difficult for them to cope with Ben White and Saka, as well as Zinchenko and Martinelli, without leaving huge gaps in the middle. And Eddie, at the moment, looks like he might be physically strong enough to win the ground duels, play better with his back to goal, and start putting people through as well. And if he doesn't, I think Trossard comes on and unlocks the game. This is all going to come down to confidence. Crystal Palace have done really well under Hodgson, but not against big teams. If they go a goal down early, there's every reason to think they might feel that this was an inevitable result. There's not that much riding on this for them. They're not expected to win. If they get a goal ahead, though, will the Arsenal players' heads drop? I still feel that we can fight back, but it'd be really interesting to see the levels of fitness and the confidence, because we're all talking a good game at the moment, but the only place it counts is on the pitch, something the Man City ruthlessly show us all the time. Do your talking on the pitch, get the 3 points. Doesn't have to be attractive. The most important thing for me is that we go there to get the 3 points. Everything else is second. If that squad is determined to go one better this season, then 3 points is a minimum requirement. I expect us to start like a team that's had 9 days to prepare for this game and is facing fairly obvious lineup. Mikel Arteta not playing. My prediction for the match, therefore, Arsenal 2-0. Love to know what you think. Thank you so much for watching all this way. Let's have a heated debate. Trossard, Nketiah, or Kai Havertz. Could Kai Havertz play a good... One of the things that Kai Havertz doesn't get talked about enough for is his work rate. High press is going to be really important. We got our second goal against Palace last season because of a high press. Turnovers in their half for a team that plays in transition. Golden opportunities. Might Eddie get a hat-trick? Anyway, let's... can't wait to find out what the actual lineups are going to be, how close I was, and I will be watching. And look, I really hope I'm wrong about the scoreline. It'd be great to get a 5-0 under our belt just to allay any concerns. We do have some tricky fixtures coming up, or fixtures that are tricky on paper. Exciting to have football back. Anyway, till I see you again. Be lucky! Lots of love.